Hello and welcome. My name is Racho, and today I will be covering how to kill Profit Taker for credits. So this is a credit from Profit Taker guide, not a speedrun Profit Taker guide, as they are two different things. Furthermore, this is not a meta guide, however I will be covering the meta options. They're just not the builds that I will be using or showing in this video, as first of all, that's not how I like to play the game. I just don't enjoy the weapons that are meta. And also, I have the intention of trying to show that you don't need to run meta to do Profit Taker effectively, as I am still running Profit Taker in 4 minutes, even with this off-meta setup. I am using meta things. I'm mostly talking about Kuva Augurus and the Zenith, which is what I'm not using, but I will mention them, and I will explain why they're meta, and I will explain what I do instead of using them, because they're meta specifically related to the pylons, which I will cover once we get to it. First off, what is Profit Taker and how do you do it? Well, if you ever go into your battle, you'll notice a big spider, robotic spider, on top of the, I think it's the enrichment labs. That's Profit Taker. If you remember the quest, I'm pretty sure Profit Taker makes an appearance in the Solaris United quest as well. You actually can't kill her, you can't interact with her or anything like that. However, once you reach rank 5, that is Old Mate with Solaris United, so the normal syndicate in Fortuna, you will be able to go back to this back room, back here, and you will be able to talk to Yudiko and the Biz at this table. You can enter this back room regardless of what your rank is, but if you attempt to talk to them at this table before your rank 5, they will tell you to go away and that they're not finished working on the plans that they have ready. Once you are rank 5 though, you will be able to access either the Profit Taker or Exploder Orb bounties. Do note that Exploder Orb is like Eidolons. You don't need to do the bounty to actually fight Exploder Orb. You do need to be rank 5 to do the Exploder Orb bounty, but you do not need to be rank 5 with Solaris United to do Exploder Orb. You only need to be rank 5 for Profit Taker. Profit Taker has 4 bounties and they're always the same, except they will give you different rewards obviously. The last bounty is the actual Profit Taker boss fight. The first 3 bounties only ever have to be done once, and then you can just go straight into the boss fight without having to redo the first 3 bounties. So why do Profit Taker? Well, Profit Taker is the most effective credit farm in the entire game, as every time you kill Profit Taker, she will drop 125,000 credits. You might be thinking, how is that better from High Risk Index? As each rotation and high risk index, you get 200,000 credits. Well, first of all, it's a lot faster. Like I said, I am doing Profit Taker in 4 minutes, which is a lot faster than what you get with high risk index. And secondly, you can apply a lot more multipliers onto Profit Taker. For example, Chroma is the very simple and easy quick fix to improve the amount of credits you get from Profit Taker, as Chroma's 4th actually doubles the credit drops around it, which will take the 125,000 credits you get from Profit Taker to 250,000 credits per run, which is more than you get from High Risk Index. And all you need is Chroma, which is why Chroma is the meta for credit farming Profit Taker. However, he is not the meta for speedrunning, only for credit farming Profit Taker. In addition to that, you can continuously stack up more bonuses if you wanted. For example, if Thermia Fracture was currently activated and you had the resource booster from Thermia Fracture, you'd get 500,000 per run. You could get a credit booster on top of the previous ones I mentioned, that's 1 million per run. You could get a blessing, a credit booster of blessing from a relay, that's 2 million per run. If it's a credit weekend on top of all those factors, that's 4 million per run. And then you also have a Smedikavat's charm, which can increase that 4 million even more. So Profit Taker is amazing for credit farming, and is the easiest and best way to do it. In addition to being amazing for credits, Profit Taker will also give you a Crimson Torrid each time you kill her. If you have a booster, that will be doubled to 2. Crimson Torrids will give you 6,000 standing. Lazarette Torrids do give you double that, and Lazarette Torrids you get from Exploder Orb, but Exploder Orb is much slower than Profit Taker. So, which makes Profit Taker the best way to farm up the box Solaris Syndicate, which is Little Duck, which you also find in the back room. You can talk to her by going into your operator. She's essentially the Quills, but for the Orb of Valus, and you can get amps like the 777 amps and also a bunch of arcanes from her. So how do you kill Profit Taker? Well, the Profit Taker boss fight actually has 4 different phases. And within these phases, she may have different sub-phases and other things that you have to deal with in order to defeat her. More than anything, she has 3 different defensive mechanisms, including her actual health bar. These mechanisms are her shields, her actual health bar, and pylons. The way her shields work is they will block all damage against her. No damage will be able to get through. However, they will change to one of the 13 damage types. This is the 3 physical damage types, impact, puncture, slash, and the 10 elemental damage types. So things like void and true damage aren't factored in. That it's just the main 13 damage types. While she switches to one of these 13 damage types, that damage type and only that damage type will be able to damage her shields. So you want to have as many different weapons with as many different possible damage types, so you can do as much different damage to her depending on what she switches to. If she will randomly switch her own damage type after a certain time. However, if she takes too much damage while set to one damage type, she will change it faster. And if you don't like the damage type she has switched to, you can actually use your amp or void sling into her to forcefully change it. Do note that whenever she changes her damage type for whatever reason, there is a cooldown before she can change it again. So if she changes to a damage type you don't have, and then you immediately try to change it with your amp, it won't work. You have to wait for the cooldown to happen. It's only like a 1 second or 2 second cooldown or something. It's not very long. But yes, to get rid of the shields, pretty simple. All you have to do is shoot them with any of your weapons, as long as that weapon does the damage type that the shields are currently switched to. For her health, which is what you have to completely deplete to actually kill her, she has kind of 2 steps. First of all, you need to get rid of the health of her 4 legs, and then she will drop to the ground where you will then shoot her torso. You'll have to do this 4 times total. You do it once in each phase in order to fully defeat her. Only arc guns can damage her body, her legs, and her torso. Only arc guns can damage her health. You can either get the arc gun out by using the Archgun deployer, which you get from the 3rd Profit Taker bounty, or you can just use your Necromech. Aqueduct also does count as an arc gun, so it does do damage to it, but I wouldn't recommend using Aqueduct, as it has a slow animation to get into it and will slow you down. I would recommend using your Necromech though, more so just as a catalyst to get to your Archgun, as summoning your Necromech is a lot faster than summoning your Archgun weapon through the Archgun deployer. And then finally, she has pylons. She will shoot off pylons twice during her fight, once during the 2nd phase and then a 2nd time during the 3rd phase of her fight. The first time she will shoot off 4 pylons, the 2nd time she shoots off 6. They will just randomly go into different areas around the general facility around her, and you will have to destroy the pylons in order to damage her again. She will be completely immune to all damage until the pylons are fully depleted, fully gone. This is where Zenith and Kuva Ogress come in as meta options. Kuva Ogress is currently the meta with Nightwatch Napalm, because you can simply shoot the Kuva Ogress where the pylons are going to land, and the Nightwatch Napalm effect will destroy the pylons once they land. So they get basically spawn killed. Zenith is also really good and was the previous meta, and is still a very good option because of Zenith's infinite punch through, so you don't have to go running around to each of the pylons. You can just shoot through the map or fly up into the air and shoot them and kill them, as the pylons have force fields around them that will stop all damage from entering unless you're inside the force field, but the Kuva Ogress punch through allows it to go through. Sorry, not the Kuva Ogress. The Zenith's punch through allows it to go through. Alternatively, you could do what I'm doing, which is simply just use your Archwing to fly over to them, destroy them, and be happy. In that case, you can use whatever melee or whatever primary weapon you want. Zenith is still a pretty good option when taking care of the shields with Profit Taker, but Kuva Ogress isn't. So normally with a Kuva Ogress build, you need to get an elite crew member to have another weapon for you so you can fill all the damage types that you need. But my build will not be using elite crewmen because they're expensive, and also because I will not be using Kuva Ogress. So next I will show you my build. So which weapon am I using? Well, my melee is the Balazar, and my secondary is the Tenet Diplos, and these two are actually pretty widely considered the meta option. Unfortunately, the Balazar with Exodia Contagion is really the only option when it comes to melees, which is unfortunate because Exodia Contagion is only available one time a year when Plague Star is around, which it currently is not. The reason why we use the Bala Tsar with the Kuva Ogress is the Bala is just really fast and has really good stats, and not Kuva Ogress, I don't know why I keep saying that. And Exodia Contagion fires out a projectile, meaning you give yourself some range to your melee, and it will do a massive amount of damage. This is really the only option when it comes to melee, because you don't obviously want to walk up to her and attempt to melee her with just a regular weapon. You could theoretically use a glaive, but the Exodia Contagion is just far better at doing it. This is because Exodia Contagion will do all 3 of the IPSs, plus Blast, plus any modded element you have on your weapon. On my Tsar, I have Viral, plus Heat. And I have melee exposure, which will be giving me corrosive whenever I cast an ability. This means that my Bala will be giving me impact, puncture, slash, heat, viral, blast, and corrosive. That is, with one weapon, 7 of the 13 damage types. That's half, technically more than half, of the 13 damage types. For Profiteer builds, they're pretty simple. You just want to go for raw damage and obviously the elements you're running. So we have Viral Heat, and then we have Prime Pressure Point for our base damage. We have Sacrificial Steel for our crit chance, as we will not be building up combos, so we will not be using Blood Rush. Gladiator Might and Organ Shatter and Gladiator Might for crit damage, and we will be using a faction mod. Profiteer is a Corpus unit, so Corpus faction mods do work on her and will greatly improve your damage output. The Tenet Diplos is used first and foremost because it is a Tenet weapon, and Tenet and also Kuva weapons gain an additional element from the Kuva/Tenet system, which is very useful for Profiteer as we want to have as many elements as possible. In addition to that though, Tenet Diplos is a fast firing weapon with good stats, and the best type of weapons to use against Profiteer is fast firing weapons. Again, we have a very simple, just a raw damage build set up with specific elements to take out our Profiteer. We get magnetic through the Tenet system. I would recommend getting a 60% Tenet Diplos. I think mine's only like 36 or something. So mine isn't as effective as it could be, but it doesn't need to be to beat Profiteer, as you would have seen in this video. In addition to that, we are also modding for gas and electricity. So that gives us an additional 3 of the 13 damage types paired with Bala, making us up to 9 of the 13 now. You'll notice that Tenet Diplos also does impact, slash, and puncture, so you can also do that. You can do impact, puncture, and slash with the Tenet Diplos, except Bala will just be a lot more effective. Also, the Bala is a Bala grip, a Bala strike, a Paye grip, and the Vajay Tujai link. It's a very simple, like what you'd expect, really. Obviously, we have multi-shot and lethal torrent for more multi-shot and fire rate. We have our crit damage and crit chance, and we have our Bane mod, a faction mod, our Expel, in this case, our Expel Corpus. We don't have any base damage except for secondary dexterity. That's because we are running Chroma, and Chroma's Vex Armor gives us base damage. So we don't need to worry about modding for base damage. It is important to note though that on our melee, Exodia Contagion, Vex Armor is multiplicative with, which is why we do run base damage on our Tsar rhythm. We are still running secondary dexterity because we can use our Tsar to get rid of some of the trash fodder that hover around Profiteer in order to give us an even more of a base damage buff from secondary dexterity. So that's just some extra damage, but Vex Armor will give us all the base damage we need. And then our primary, and this is where off meta comes in, the biggest definition of off meta. You normally want to be using a assault rifle for Profiteer, which is why Zenith is good, why Kuva is also a popular option. I'm using Rubico, which is a sniper. The good thing though is the Rubico with this setup will either one-shot or two-shot the current adaptation of the Profiteer's shields. It is set up for radiation and cold, which is the two of the 3 last damage types we are running, giving us 12 of the 13 damage types. Unfortunately, it is impossible to get all 4 primary damage types, that is cold, heat, electric, and toxic, with just 3 weapons, as if you mod them on the weapon, it will mix into a secondary damage type. The only way to get all 4 would be either using Sarin, as Toxic Lash, the toxic you get from Toxic Lash does not mix with mods, or Volt, as the electricity from Volt shields also do not mix with mods, and this is why Volt is the meta for speedrunning Profit Taker. With this build, the one element we won't be doing is Toxic. That is the only damage type we won't be doing. Every other damage types we will be doing. So simply we just mod for our heat radiation with our electricity and heat, and then we have cold. On top of that, we have our faction mod, we have our multi-shot, we have our crit chance, crit damage, and speed trigger. Fire rate. You'll notice we don't have base damage again because we have dexterity and vex armor. Do note, don't use the galvanized mods, as you won't be killing enemies to activate the galvanized mods effects. So, for example, if I was to use Galvanized Chamber, since I'm not really killing enemies, since I won't be killing enemies with Rubico, I'll only be getting 80% multi-shot instead of 90% I get from Split Chamber. So the regular mods are better in this circumstance. And now we have the Chroma Prime Build. The Chroma Prime Build is very simply just strength and duration. All we want to do is be activating Elemental Ward and Vex Armor. That's it. We want to be able to place Effigy whenever, just before Profit Taker dies, to double our credit drops. And then we do have a interesting helmet, which I will explain in a bit. The build is pretty simple though. Avenger for some more damage to our weapons, Grace so we can get some healing going, Adaptation obviously for more damage reduction, Primed Flow for energy, Hunter Adeline for energy recovery, Continuity, Narrow-Minded for duration, Blind Rage, Transient Fortitude for strength, and then we have Vital for some more health, as we are health tanking. Still Charge is simply just for the mod capacity reasons, and Prime Sure-Footed is definitely a must because Profit Taker will knock you back if you aren't using it. You might want to consider using Arcane Nullifier, because Profit Taker can proc you with Magnetic, which will lower your energy, but I don't have any energy in common issues, generally speaking, so I run Avenger, but Nullifier would probably be a better option. Now, I should explain Pyrostatic Armor. It is just a simple helmet ability you get from the helmet. You don't get it from any particular Warframe, you just get it through leveling up the helmet. What it does is it gets rid of all your shields and gives you armor. I don't care about the armor, I get tons of that from Vex Armor. What I do care about is the fact that it gets rid of all my shields. Because Vex Armor requires you to take damage to your health in order to build up the base damage buff, or shooting with a primary or secondary weapon, which I won't be doing, I opted to use this ability as I can get in at the start of the mission, activate Vex Armor, get rid of my shields. That will make Profit Taker immediately damage my health without having to worry about shields getting in the way or shield getting in the way, which can build up my damage buff straight away. After we do that once, we never have to do it again, as all we have to do is remember to recast Vex Armor before it runs out of duration, because that will keep the buff that we had built up when we last, when it was last activated. So it keeps the buffs. If it fully deactivates, it will reset. If it doesn't, if you recast it before it deactivates, you'll keep the buff. If you want more information on Chroma and how Chroma's abilities work, do check out my recent Chroma video build. We are using Toxic, which is for Elemental Ward, as the holster damage you get from Elemental Ward not only will be a nice extra little base damage buff for our secondary and primary, but it will also give us a multiplicative damage buff for our Exodia Contagion. To get Toxic, since we have Helmet off our first ability, simply just put your first emission color to green. Just any kind of green, and you'll get Toxic. We also have the Smita Kavat for Charm, as Charm has a chance to give us a credit booster, which will give us even more credits, so that is why we're running Smita Kavat. We do have Tenacious Bond along with Bite to give us some extra crit damage to all of our weapons, Tech Enhance to increase the duration of Charm, Synth Fiber, which is probably to increase the survivability of our Smita, giving it some health tanking capability. We also have some more armor and some more health, going all in on the health tanking setup. Sense Deconstruct, which will reload our weapons when holstered, which is very useful. Pack Leader, which will be able to heal our companion by using Exodia Contagion, and then Mischief is also just for some more survivability for Smita. Since Deconstruct is very useful, as it means we will never have to reload our Diplos or our Rubico. Since Rubico only has 6 bullets with my current mod setup, Synth Deconstruct will basically fully reload it always. in the case of Diplos, Diplos also has a effect, a unique trait that reloads it while holstered, which of course is added with the synth mod set. So it will reload really fast while holstered, and we never have to reload those weapons manually. We will just have to holster them, and they'll reload very quickly for us. Of course, we can't forget about the Archgun. The Archgun is modded for radiation, as Propheteka has alloy armor, which is weak to radiation. This might change with Jade Shadows, as we are getting a health type rework. But I assume that the bosses will each have their own unique damage reduction setups, as damage reductions will no longer be based on health types, they'll be based on faction. And I assume bosses will have their own unique ones, and I don't see their damage reductions changing. So I assume even after Jade Shadows, Propheteka will still be weak to radiation. If not, I will leave a comment in this video saying what her new weakness is. But this is just set up for a radiation raw damage build. Obviously, we have radiation here. Then we have our multi-shot. We have our charge rate as we're using the Velocitus. We have our base damage. We have our crit chance, crit damage, and then more radiation and multi-shot. This will give us a guaranteed. This gives us a 1.9 multi-shot, which means we have a 90% chance to do 2 shots, which is very good. With a full charge of the Velocitus, we will one-shot each of the Propheteka's legs and also her torso when we're damaging her, which is why we use Velocitus. Velocitus is kind of the meta right now. You just get Velocitus from the dojo, super easy weapon to get. For the Necromech, doesn't matter if you're using Void Rig or Bone Widow, the build doesn't really matter, and either I've just set up for basically like survivability. Like, it's just there isn't much going on with Void Rigs, generally speaking, and we're not using any of the Void Rigs abilities or anything like that. We would just be using it to get out our Archgun faster than we would with the Archgun Build. And we will be using Itzel as the Archwing simply just for its speed. All that matters is the Itzel's the fastest Archwing in the game, and Hyper-Ethan Thrust makes it faster. That's it. The rest of the build doesn't matter. Now I'm going to take you through a Propheteka run, so I am going to go a bit slower and actually explain what I'm doing during the run, and how I set it up and how it normally goes. So we leave the elevator. Propheteka hasn't spawned yet, so I'm going to activate Wellspring. Yes, I am running Xeneric just for the additional energy economy. For the amp, I am running a 174 simply because it's the same amp I use for Eidolons. But more importantly, you just want an amp with a long range, so you could do any amp with a long range. So you can switch the Propheteka's damage type if you want B. Propheteka spawned, I activate my 3 abilities, activated my first, so I take damage to my health, and then we can start doing damage to our enemy. So viral, we use Zar for our viral. Toxic we don't have. We'll deactivate our first as we have the damage buff we need and we don't have to worry about that. So we activate our amp, switch this damage type, we'll activate the Zar again for slash, whoopsies. Hold on. There we go. Now its shields are already done, so we just charge up our shots, shoot the torso, shoot the limbs with our Archgun. Excuse me, thank you. And then that's the first phase of Propheteka done. So Propheteka has 4 phases, and I will explain the 4 phases here. The first phase is the shields, and then her legs, her body. The second phase is when the pylons come around. So we want to fly around with our Archgun to each of the pylons and shoot them and get rid of them. After doing that, she will once again be vulnerable and will be able to switch into our Necromech again. Whoopsies. See, that right there, that I activated Acrodex accidentally, and you saw how slow that was. So we want to just shoot her legs once again. And then her body like so, and that enters into the third phase. The third phase will have Propheteka once again activate her shields. So now we just need to get in front of her so we can see what damage type she's changed to. So she's set to radiation. My Rubico has radiation. Corrosive. My Zar does corrosive. Electricity is from my Diplos. Oh, I didn't even notice to change the puncture. Puncture is for that. Cold is my Rubico. And then her shields are down again. So we'll jump into the Necromech again as it's time to once again take out her legs. Can you stop? Dude, Profitaker, would you stop? Bruh. Bloody hell. After you do that, you will enter... After you do that, she will then fire off 6 pylons this time. This is still considered phase 3. So she'll shoot out the 6 pylons and you'll just run around and destroy them. This is where you would use the Zenith or the Kuva Ogress to get rid of the pylons, but as you can see, I just fly up to them with my Archwing and then I use my Diplos in order to get rid of them. So all of her pylons are now done, and then we've entered phase 4. Phase 4 is the same as phase 1, except now we have a 5-minute timer, except we're doing the whole boss fight in 4 minutes, so the 5-minute timer is not something to worry about. Magnetic, we obviously use the Diplos. Blast, we use the Tsar. Viral, we use the Tsar. Toxic, we don't use anything, so we're going to wait a bit for it to get off the cooldown, then we're going to activate our Operator. Slash, Tsar. Let's kill some of these guys. And her shields are already down. We enter the Necromech one last time, get rid of her legs. And once you deliver the final blow, she will enter a death animation, which is happening right now. As this death animation happens, you want to place your 4th around about here. Right here along that leg. Right behind her as she drops out her loot at the back of her. Once she drops her loot, you can activate your Archwing and activate the Itzel's 3rd ability, which collects all the loot for you. And then all you have to do is fly back to the Fortuna and you've killed Profitaker. As simple as that. Anyway, that is all you need to know about Profitaker. I do hope you enjoyed this video and check out some of the other things I do. I have a link to my clan Discord down below if you want to join us, chat with us, or even join our clan, and other information down below, and check out some of my other videos. But until next time, bye bye!